you gridiron fanatics out there. Glad you could join us for another off-season edition of Gridiron Gab Pro Style, where we gab about all things pro football, from the scoops of the regular season to the scores of the postseason and the picks in the off-season. Let's start gabbing.
The autumn winds move like the thunderous waves of Neptune's sacred palace. And here, amongst the blackened soil, lies the ragged hands, worn, torn, and callous. They await with cunning and vicious prowess, for the warriors have returned.
Come on, Dirt! Don't do it! Woo! No way! Woo! 85! Crying out loud! You're making me, you're driving me nuts!
But behold,
Welcome back, you guys. Thank you all for joining us for another off-season edition of Gridiron Gab Pro Style. I am, of course, Mr. CeeLo, weaving our way through all 32 squads, predicting and possibly looking ahead at the off-season possibilities that each franchise either should make or will make. We continue our series with the New Orleans Saints, a football team that has continuously pushed its way out of cap oblivion. And once again, they are actually in the plus after they made some key drops. They now have $14 million in cap space after extinguishing several key players from their rosters, and including guys like Michael Thomas as well as Marcus Maye. And a great Jimmy Graham as well as Trey Turner. So looking around and basically looking at what offseason the Saints have had so far, it's been pretty meh. But let's look at how we got here, shall we? The New Orleans Saints were 9-8 and tied for number one in the NFC South. Now, that's a little bit deceiving because ultimately most people look at that and think to themselves, but wait a minute. Yeah, they ultimately say, but we didn't go to the playoffs. That is true. Ultimately in this new playoffs berth, you have to win the division. And of course, even with the old playoff format, Tampa Bay was going to win the NFC South and go to the playoffs. But this is how bad it was, and ultimately the Saints were, with the 2-game win streak and the 4 of the last 5 victories, were not able to get them over the top, as Tampa Bay was able to pull out the victory, as they were able to, the story behind that, Tampa Bay was able to pull enough wins favorably early on, and unfortunately for the Saints, they hit a middle path where they dropped 5 of 7, and ultimately it cost them. It really did. And for a team that really did not run the ball efficiently, and that goes as one of those key components that, not necessarily myself, but, hearing a lot of reporters out of New Orleans saying that the offensive line was not as nasty and just forceful as they had been in the past, and that really was a problem when it came to being able to throw the ball down the field. And they had some weapons. Olave, of course, had over 1,123 yards receiving on 87 reception. He had 5 scores. Rashid Shaheed had 46 grabs for 719 and 5 scores. But ultimately, you look at the run game. Taysom Hill had 401 yards on the ground to Alvin Kamara's 694. To Alvin Kamara's 694. And he had 100 more carries. Yeah, that's not going to cut it. And something else you could throw in there Alvin Kamara did not touch the ball as efficiently as a receiver. He did have 75 grabs, but you only look at he's only got one touchdown. To me, it just shows an inability to be creative getting him the football. It's just on dump offs and maybe screens. And that does have something to do with the offensive line's inability to get down the field and make blocks and set up blocks, if you will. So you're going to hear this as a continued theme for the New Orleans Saints is offensive line, left guard, left tackle, right tackle. And they're going to have to make decisions about this. And this is another team that is a possible trade down candidate type of team, you guys. So let's look at the tail of the tape, in which you guys know I love to do. And it's a turnover margin. The Saints were plus 11, you guys. More like the New York Giants, who were plus 12. You look at this, and this is a telltale sign of where a team is supposed to be if they just have a marginal offense. I'm not talking about an explosive, great offense. The Saints had a pretty good, pretty explosive offense. Derek Carr threw for almost for over 3,800 yards, and only threw 8 interceptions. So you would think this is a team that is going to be just blowing teams off the field when you got a plus or minus of plus 10, and they had plus 11, And 9 and 8, you guys. The Bucs only had a plus 8. They only had a plus 8. So we dig in here and we see, ultimately, as good as this defense has been creating turnovers, we have to look at the front on offense, but we also have to look at the front on the defensive side. As good as this defense was, the Saints only had 34 sacks this season, which was 4th worst in the NFL.
That was pathetic.
4th worst. This is a team that, as good as it's been on that side of the ball, they were 4th worst in generating sacks. And Carl Gunderson had 8.5 of the 16 sacks just by the edge rushers.
Is that your best?
Oh yeah, that's a tough thing to look at. Carl Gunderson just got extended, if I remember correctly, last season, and you're looking at a team that has guys like Demario Davis on it, and guys like Brian Bresee, who had a really good rookie campaign out of Clemson, playing that defensive tackle position, and you got the old ageless wonder Cameron Jordan only having 2, but there's talks that he's probably going to go to a more. They're going to see where he's stronger at. More than likely going into camp. More than likely they'll push him into either a third down specialist or just a run down specialist. But Cameron Jordan has been a huge franchise player for them for many years, and I think he deserves that send-off the way it is. But they struggled at this position with guys like Isaiah Foskey, who were unable to come in as a rookie and make a big impact. Now, the question is he going to take that sophomore leap? That's the question, because, being a Notre Dame guy, I watched Isaiah Foskey, and he was very dominant when he set his mind to. Now, going back to the offensive side in 2023, the biggest problem you've seen in the Saints is they've not been able to hit on their first-round picks when you start looking at what they've been, drafting as far as linemen go. You look at, they've got Trevor Penning, who they've drafted, and people are already saying he's a bust. And I'm like, well, come on, let's kind of pump the brakes on this. Yes, he was taken in the first round in 2022. I get it. This is going to be coming up on year 3. It's kind of early for that. You kind of have to go through a different kind of evaluation coming up on year 3. And a lot of people, it all depends, and it's also a situation where you've had problems at your tackle position, and I think you can't exclude that. You have to be open to understanding that you've got to get things right on the interior, or you're going to have problems from the exterior as well. And when you look at the left guard position and you look at James Hurst, who is considered by many reporters and sports writers as the weak link on that offensive line, and they've got to get that shored up. Now, the question is, where do the Saints go with their first pick, which is going to be the 14th pick? Now, this is just my opinion. You guys have heard me. You have heard me a lot, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute. But when you sit and you look at it, you got guys like the signings they made with Udoa. Basically what people are saying is that they're hoping when they sign Mecca Udoa, they're hoping they get this guy to steady the tackle position. This is a guy they signed in free agency. And then you're hoping you can sign another guy in free agency, but it doesn't appear that the Saints are looking to re-sign anybody in free agency. Now, we need to look forward and talk about the issues that this team is facing. We've already talked about the D-line. We've already talked about the O-line. A big problem that the Saints have not addressed yet. Now, they did sign one, but it's the receiver position. And whether people want to admit this or not, the Saints do have an issue here because they only have a handful of guys signed through the season. And now a lot of people are saying, oh, well, what do we want? Well, you don't really know, because at this point you've got your best player, who once was your best player. Michael Thomas is gone. You only got Chris Olave and A.T. Perry and Rashid Shaheed back. And this is what's got to happen, that you've got to make moves. Either you're going to trade down or you're going to make a serious push to go after some of these other guys in the draft. And I'm thinking you could take that 14th pick. Now, this is just me. I'm thinking you could take that 14th pick and make magic with it. But you have to be able to, because you've got to be able to, in a sense, make up for this offensive line's inabilities. And then at the same time, get you a pass rusher. Now, do I think re-signing Amadi and then signing Abram and then signing Willie Gay, which was a huge sign. I know I'm skipping around a little bit, guys, but that was something I had to do, because now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of the draft. We're getting into the draft, what the Saints need to do. Because ultimately, the first-round picks on the line, as I said before, are not working out, and you got to get somebody in here that is going to make a difference on both sides of the ball. You need one guy on that defense that can make the difference. Then you need two guys on that offensive line. I would argue a guard and a tackle. Now, you can arguably get all three if you make the right move, because you're going to have some guys some teams that are going to want to move up. You are going to see teams that are going to be dying to move up to that 14th position, and you could possibly, and this is what I say, you hold that 14th pick for ransom. You want a first this year and a second, and a possible third if you can get it. But if you can get a first and a second, have at it, because you hold the cards at this point, because you have a round pick. You have a first and you have your second. Now, after that, here's the interesting part. The Saints do not have a third. They all they have is 4 fifths, 2 sixths, and a 7th. Okay? So they don't have all their picks, as I alluded to earlier. That was my mistake. So this is what has to happen if you're a Saints. You got to knock both these picks out. So ultimately, this is what I suggest. I suggest that the Saints get a first and a second, keep moving down, and take whatever they can to keep moving up, because they could fill this roster easily with the right moves. And now let me go ahead and let you guys feast on what I am going to let you see, because the reality of it, the Saints get three 5th round comp picks, and that gives them 4 5th round picks. Now, what I suggest, and a lot of people are going to look at me and say, "There's no way." Okay, you're sitting here with the 14th pick. more than likely, a guy like Dallas Turner, you'd just be salivating over. But here's the unfortunate thing. This is what is unfortunate about the situation that the New Orleans Saints find themselves in. They don't have another pick until the 5th round. That means after they make their pick on early on day 2, they don't come back till Sunday. Yeah. I mean, they don't come back till midday Sunday. And here's what you have to realize if you're a Saints fan. Well, yeah, you don't come back till Sunday. Well, no, it'll be late Saturday. But you need to trade that pick. And a lot of people will say, well, why would you do that? You got a shot at possibly Dallas Turner or Jared Verse. Well, you can take your pick. I mean, you could take Jared Verse. You could just trade down about 3 picks and get a high-end second-round pick, possibly, and you'll have 2 second-round picks. You could get Leatu Latu, or you could get J.C. Latham out of Alabama, the 6'6", 335-pound tackle out of Alabama. Or you get Amarius Mims, the 6'7", 340 out of Georgia. Or you could get the strong hands, mean running tackle that you've been looking for out of Graham Barton. And better yet, if you could get low enough, you could possibly get a low-end first, and possibly take a Donnie Mitchell. Pair him with Chris Olave. You could pair him with Chris Olave. Possibly take Chris Bracewell, 6'3", 255. I mean, and the sky's the limit here. If you could get those picks, and then you got Braden Fisk, a guy I absolutely love. The guy I told you, he just reminds me so much of Chris Jones with that second pick. If you could get one high end, if you could get one of those high end second round picks, you could go ahead and take one of your guards, or you could take one of your tackles, take Braden Fisk, or even trade back enough, guys, get Braden Fisk. You could take Troy Franklin, 6'3", wide receiver out of Oregon, and then turn around and get Jordan Morgan out of Arizona, and then you could get Chop Robinson. So you could get Braden Fisk. This is just trading down. This is just trading down, guys. Let's say you trade all the way to the 30th pick, and people are gonna say, "Well, this is like if Braden Fisk is your guy." Let's take a look at that. If Braden Fisk is your guy, and I'm telling you, if the Saints get this guy, this is gonna be trouble. And get Chop Robinson, and then let's say you've got. Those are your 2 second rounders. Let's say you trade down enough and get 2 seconds and you get 2 low end first. You could very well take Tyler Guyton, who's ranked 29th, who is raw. I will admit it. He's raw. And then take a Donnie Mitchell. Yeah. There's your problem solved right there. Even though you still got to get your guard. You could very well snatch up a 3rd round pick in this deal too. And here's the beautiful thing about what I'm about to tell you guys. You look at the way this draft is set up, you guys. You could arguably pick up a guard late. As I said, you got Christian Haynes at 6'2", 313, as well as Christian Mahogany out of Boston College. Now, these guys are given high 3rd round grades. But let's look at the 3rd round. And if the Saints trade down and do get a 3rd round, you got guys like Mason McCormick, who really doesn't have a whole lot to say. But then you got Cooper Beebe. It's his IQ that people are just raving about, the Kansas State center. But he does have athletic limitations, which may possibly put a pause on that. But you never know. Intelligence can make up for it. But as I said, they don't necessarily need a great guard, but they could have a guy who is in the 2nd and 3rd round position. Yeah, 2nd, 3rd round position of tackles, whom may not fit the bill of a straight up guard. Now, Blake Fisher out of Notre Dame, he has to get quicker in certain areas. He's 6'6", 312. Now, a lot of people say that's kind of tall for a guard. Maybe, but at the same time, it's never a bad thing to have a physically imposing tackle guard and playing in that position to protect you, at least if he's doing the job. But I would say you got guys like Patrick Paul, who's 6'7", 315, and Dominic Pooney, 6'5", 320. These are some guys that you could put out there in Satoa Lamoye out of Utah, 6'4", 311. These are guys that they could take and plug into that guard position, and even bump them out to guard. Bump them out to tackle. Try them out there, and if they don't work there, guess what? The beautiful thing about guys that don't make it at the tackle position, you can always put them in at the guard position. Always move them there and see if they work there. But however, as I said, the Saints need to do, I'm a big fan of trading and developing draft capital with the many positions that the Saints need in the very short number of draft picks they have in the top 2 rounds. They have no choice. They're going to have to trade down to make any kind of a specific move to put this running game, to put some back in this running game, and give Alvin Kamara some of those lanes that he was accustomed to seeing early on in his career. Defensively, as I said, as weak as this pass rush was last year, this defense was relatively good. But I will say this could be something the Saints could look at. I'm not encouraging this because he's one of the best corners in the league, but I heard someone talking about this the other day about putting Marshawn Lattimore on the trading block. I think they said something about when they reworked this deal, it had some kind of clause in there where, I just heard speculation, you guys. I don't know much about it, but I did hear something about Marcus Lattimore could be shipped, and it would not cost the Saints very much. So Saint fans, beware. It's possible that your best secondary player could be on the move. And while it would help the cap a little bit more, there's no telling what you could get back from it. We've seen if guys aren't locked into long-term deals, they don't carry much weight on the trade value, especially when it comes to picks. We're seeing that more and more now. If guys are not locked into long-term deals, you don't get much for it. But guys, Saint fans, I see this team being a team that is continuously rolling the cap, pushing the cap further and further down the road, and now it's come time to pay the bill, and they've got it under. They've gotten under the cap, and as I said, the signing of Willie Gay, which I did not say much about, I think it was an understated signing. Now they have a really tough linebacking core. I look for decent things, but unless the Saints fix this O-line, they're still going to be right where they were last year. You got 12 plus in the turnover differential, and you're still going to be 9-8. You're going to be fighting more than likely with the Bucks and not going to touch the Falcons, guys. But let me know what you guys think, Saints fans. Who Dat Nation? Let me know in the comments how you feel, what you believe the Saints should do, and what they or what you know that they're going to do. Because this is what I've seen in the speculations I've heard. Also go to Gridiron Gab Pro Style on Facebook. Let me know what you guys think. Continuously trying to improve the show for you guys. As well as go to my Instagram at Mr. CeeLo and let me know what you guys think, so you can see the other things that I'm also working on. But until the next time, you guys, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.
But behold, there is a warm breeze that comes from the west. The blazing sounds of victory fuel their everlasting quest. It is a call to arms, for they are here. An army that has the will to challenge and the will to dare.